It's Sunday, February 25th, 2024, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard that a man self-immolated today outside the Israeli embassy in DC. I first saw the report from this account, Talia Jane, who's an independent journalist. They say they got footage of self-immolation. The individual wearing fatigues introduced himself as an active duty member of the U.S. Air Force and said he would no longer be complicit in genocide. After igniting himself on fire, he repeatedly yelled, "Free Palestine." This person says that he said, "I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal." Talia Jane went on to add more details. Apparently, he live streamed his self-immolation, so that's where a lot of the information is coming from. For a full minute, police see him say, "May I help you?" As he's on fire, scream at him to get on the ground, but do not otherwise engage. One cop appears with a gun drawn on the man after he collapses, still consumed by flames. One cop begins spraying him with a fire extinguisher. The cop with gun drawn remains stationary. The cop who was spraying him with the fire extinguisher said, "I don't need guns, I need fire extinguishers." More cops arrive, as to EMTs. 3 fire extinguishers are used. They go on to say that it's unclear if the man is still alive. The white shirt responder first came across the device used to film the incident and made the video stop. Then this is the quote that he said apparently at the beginning of the stream. He walks up to the driveway of the Israeli embassy, places his phone down to film, goes up the drive, dumps liquid from a metal water bottle over his head, tosses the bottle, places his hat on his head, pulls out a lighter from his pocket, and struggles to light. He apparently contacted reporters stating that, "Today I am planning to engage in an extreme act of protest against the genocide of the Palestinian people," stating that he would be live streaming it on Twitch. This is an update that says that per fire and EMS in DC, he is hospitalized with life-threatening injuries. Responding cops were Secret Service. There's allegedly a LinkedIn belonging to the person with the same name that shows 3 years in the United States Air Force and attending university for undergrad in software engineering. The image that people have seen that I can't share because it won't be allowed on TikTok is a still from the live broadcast on a Twitch channel with no other videos or no subscribers. Seems that it was created for this video only. The video begins with him introducing himself and picking up the device he's filming on, which I believe is likely a phone due to video filmed vertically. He is alone and walks past the embassy of Ghana, filming himself speaking before stopping at the driveway, later reported to be the Israeli embassy. He set the device on the ground at the end of the driveway and walks up toward the gate. The video ends with a responding white shirt picking up the device, asking, "What is this? Who is this?" Apparently the Twitch channel got taken down, and Talia says that they are not going to release the footage because he self-identifies and his family has not been notified. They said I cannot publish the footage, let alone name him, prior to family notification and official confirmation. I needed to understand more about self-immolation because it's he's right, it's such an extreme act of protest, and I mean, it's obviously getting the attention that he wanted, but it's tremendous to sacrifice oneself in order to make a statement about the cruelty that's going on. The term self-immolation broadly refers to acts of altruistic self-unaliving, otherwise the giving up of one's body in an act of sacrifice. It is typically used for political or religious reasons, often as a form of nonviolent protest or in acts of martyrdom. I think it's really important that the word martyr is used here because of all of the martyrs in Palestine who are dying because of Israel's genocide. A martyr is someone who suffers persecution and death for advocating, renouncing, or refusing to renounce or advocate a religious belief or other cause as demanded by an external party. This is a quote from the 14th Dalai Lama. "I think the self-burning itself is a practice of nonviolence. These people, you see, they could instead easily use bomb explosive, causing more casualties. But they didn't do that, only sacrificed their own life. So this is also part of practice of nonviolence." I wanted to learn a little bit about the history of self-immolation. Legends of people committing the act of self-immolation date back centuries. First instance is said to come from Sati, one of the wives of the Hindu god Shiva. According to myth, she married against her father's wishes and then burned herself to death after her father insulted her husband. The story is often linked to the practice of Sati, which was a custom in some parts of India where a widow would burn herself on the funeral pyre of her dead husband. The practice was outlawed in India in 1829. Moving into modern times, the first and most famous moment of self-immolation as agitprop was that of Thich Con Duc in 1963. Under the rule of Ngo Dinh Diem, South Vietnam largely advanced the agenda of the country's Catholic minority and discriminated against Buddhist monks. In one of the most dramatic instances of individual protest, Con Duc doused himself in gasoline in the middle of a Saigon street and lit himself ablaze. Afterwards, 4 more monks and a nun set themselves ablaze protesting Diem before his regime finally fell in 1963. And this article from Time magazine says that rather suddenly, setting oneself on fire became a political act. As the American presence increased in Vietnam in the mid to late 60s, more and more monks committed self-immolation, including 13 in 1 week. The grim tactic has spread across the globe. Czechoslovaks did it in protest of the Soviet invasion in 1968. 5 Indian students did it in protest job quotas in 1990. A Tibetan monk did it to protest the Indian police stopping an anti-Chinese hunger strike in 1998. Kurds did it to protest Turkey in 1999. Outlawed Falun Gong practitioners did it in Tiananmen Square in 2009, at least according to the authorities in Beijing. I also read about a man a few years ago who self-immolated in Prospect Park in Brooklyn, protesting climate disaster, stating that fossil fuels are killing the world, so he's using a fossil fuel to kill himself in protest and to draw attention to that. I found this article in the New Yorker. A terrible act of reason. When did self-immolation become the paramount form of protest? It's a millennia-old practice in both the West and the East, where it has long commanded mass sympathy and outrage unmatched by other forms of self-unaliving. The sociologist Emil Durkheim separated self-unaliving into 4 types: the egotistic, the altruistic, the anomic, moral confusion, and the fatalistic. Perhaps self-immolation captivates so thoroughly because it wins on all counts. It is the ultimate act of both despair and defiance, a symbol at once of resignation and heroic self-sacrifice. I recommend reading this article in full if you have the time, and had a much more comprehensive list of the history of self-immolation, but I wanted to include just a couple quotes that stood out to me, and this is the last one. They're talking about what motivates self-immolation. I put the question to any number of historians of self-immolation, but the best answer came from a scholar based in Washington, D.C., Timothy Dickinson. Fire is the most dreaded of all forms of death, he said. So the sight of someone setting themselves on fire is simultaneously an assertion of intolerability and, frankly, of moral superiority. You say, I would never have the guts to do that. It's not that he's trying to tell me something, but that he's commanding me. This isn't insanity. It's a terrible act of reason. And I think that's an incredible perspective on it, because every time I hear about somebody self-immolating, I'm like, I can't imagine doing that. I can't imagine putting my body through that. But it's not in this, like, pitying way. It's in this heroic way of, like, almost the same as I can't imagine being Palestinian in Palestine right now, but he is choosing it as a symbol, as a message to draw attention to what Palestinians are going through with no choice. They're forced to go through it, and he chose to self-sacrifice to draw attention to what's happening, because the world leaders continue to ignore it or pretend it's not happening or contribute to it actively. And because he doesn't want to be complicit, he doesn't want to sit around and do nothing or be a part of the military that's actively participating at this point. It's a tremendous way to make a statement, and we don't know this man's name yet, but I want to thank him for doing it. It's horrible to say that, honestly, because, he hurt himself, but he did it for a very just cause, and he's getting the attention that the people of Palestine deserve. So thank you, sir, and free Palestine.